Going through it was torture. As an adult, it pained me to look back on it. However, my parents raising me the way they did is most likely why I've survived for as long as I have. Strict doesn't even come close to describing my parents. I was a planned birth, yet I have no idea why they decided to have me. Perhaps it was to keep up appearances. The freshly painted 2-story house with the wraparound porch, the pristine white waist-high picket fence, the trim greener than green yard and perfectly red rose bushes, and the icing on the cake in their perfect life. Me. The clean-cut, straight-A, perfectly obedient child. The kid they didn't want, but had to have. If there was a potion to turn children into adults, I'm sure it would have been slipped into my bottle the day I was born, before even leaving the hospital. Strict might not be the right word. It was beyond that. I was never allowed to be a kid. We didn't even celebrate holidays. I knew the date of my birth, but I never had any typical birthday celebration. I didn't learn it was a day to celebrate until I was at school. Easter was passed over without a second thought. I spent Halloween watching other kids have fun from my bedroom window. Christmas, my parents threw a party for their business associates. They hired a designer to put up decorations the day before the party and took them down the day after. During the party, I was to be dressed in a suit and tie and placed against a wall. I stood up, straight, one hand placed neatly over the other. The adults rarely noticed I was there, and when they did, I was simply given the odd look and then forgotten. After the party guests left, I was handed my gifts of educational books that had been placed under the tree. They must keep up appearances, you know. Then left alone to read or study silently. I never had any toys growing up, not that I remember anyways. Not unless you count flashcards, a dictionary, thesaurus, complete encyclopedia set, and a complete encyclopedia set as a toy. I was allowed to go to the library as often as I wanted though, and that was my saving grace. I had to be silent at all times unless spoken to, but if a nod would suffice, that was all I was allowed to do. I spent my time drowning my pain in book after book. I was top of my class from preschool up. I had nothing better to do than read, study, and complete my homework anyways. My parents told me if I didn't ace everything, they would revoke my library privileges. Sad to think, my biggest punishment was taking away my books. I never gave them a cause to punish me though. I wasn't allowed to visit friends after school, nor were they allowed to come to my house. With that and everything else, my clean-cut appearance, refusal to get dirty, speaking like an adult at a very young age, I was quickly tagged as an odd kid, an outsider. So before I even reached middle school, the others my age avoided me like the plague. I guess you could almost call me a mute. I responded to my teachers if they called on me, which was rare, but nothing more. I was lucky enough not to be bullied. I'm not sure how I avoided that. There is really nothing else to tell about myself growing up and my childhood. I was born, forced to sit still, be silent, and behave myself. That's how it was from birth until I moved out the day after graduation. The amazing human statue. I guess there was one other thing that filled my childhood. My life, really. And that was Molly. Molly was my neighbour. I was fascinated by her for longer than I could remember. I would gaze at her as often as I could without being noticed, watching her play in the backyard with her dog, building cities in her sandbox, twirling on a tire swing, laughing on the playground with the other children, playing ring around the rosy red rover or tag. Her favourite food as a child was a peanut butter, banana and jelly sandwich. White bread, with crust still on, creamy peanut butter, strawberry jelly, and loaded with banana slices. As she got older, it remained her favourite, and she remained mine. Several times in high school, I wanted to ask her out but never got the courage or the chance. As soon as I was old enough to date, Dave never let her aside. They were truly inseparable. The day after graduation, they were married. My heart ached for her, but was soothed with the knowledge that Molly was truly living her dream life. When I was a teen, I got a job as a page at the library. It was an obvious choice since I spent most of my life within its walls. I got to spend my days surrounded by books I loved and wasn't expected to talk. A simple nod more often than not sufficed. I never thought about quitting or changing positions. I made enough to live and loved everything about my job, so I continued to work there even after graduation. I rented a small apartment within the walking distance of the library and the grocery store. My apartment was plain but clean. I had a comfy hideaway bed that I only pulled down when I wanted to sleep, a large, cozy chair with a reading lamp and side table, perfect for losing myself in the book of the moment when I wasn't at work. Enough dishes to get me through the day. Always washed, dried, and put away as soon as I'd finished eating. A perfectly organized closet full of black dress pants and crisp white-collared shirts. However, my favorite room was the bathroom, where I allowed myself to go a little crazy and brighten up the place. The shower curtain was a bright ocean blue with bright yellow, red, and green fish swimming around its pattern. I also had bright orange towels. It was easy to clean up after myself since I never made that much of a mess thanks to my upbringing. High school graduation changed my life. Aside from moving away from my parents, Molly had become a larger part in my life. Not by much, but more than she was in high school. She got a job at the library as well. It pained me to hear about her and her husband, listening to the life I wanted with her being lived by someone else. I heard every detail of her dream wedding that went off without a hitch, his amazing promotion, moving into their dream house, starting their family. In an odd sort of way, I suppose it made me happy to watch as her stomach grew with life. I missed Molly desperately during her maternity leave, but the baby pictures that followed filled my heart with joy. Pictures of her first steps, her covered in cake on her first birthday, icing smeared on her mouth and forehead. Molly's excitement when Scarlett spoke her first word, kitten. When Scarlett took her first steps, Molly had the camera ready and took picture after picture. When she laid them out, it was almost like watching her first steps happen right then and there. Several pictures were taken on Scarlett's first day of preschool. She had joyfully told Molly she wanted to wear a hat that day, and without a second thought had placed the full bowl of cereal that had just been placed in front of her upside down on her head. Molly had just enough time to capture the adorable picture of Scarlett's shocked face, milk and cereal dripping down her face, followed by pictures of her laughing. Her hair still wet after a quick bath, standing on the bottom step of the porch in a beautiful yellow sundress and cow print backpack, ready to leave for school. Her waving just before she entered her first classroom, first day of kindergarten, already surrounded by friends. She was such a beautiful child, looked exactly like her mother. She had her mother's long, silky, straight, strawberry red hair, her vibrant, piercing blue eyes, soft, pure, cream-colored skin, a warm smile that could melt snowflakes. Hell, they could have been twins. Scarlett would often come into the library after school to play in the children's section until Molly got off work. From time to time, I would be able to find a reason to speak with Scarlett for a few moments. I would ask her how her day was, or about the book she was reading. She loved the books about kittens and ponies the most. She was so smart for her age, and kind. The perfect daughter. I loved watching Molly pick Scarlett up and hold her on her hip. The perfect picture of the family I knew I would never have, but was always longing for. They were so happy together, and I desperately wanted to be the one to bring out their sweet, sweet smiles. I loved both of them so much. On my way to the grocery store, I would walk by Scarlett's school. I timed my walk so I would pass by during recess. I wouldn't stare, but I would keep an eye on Scarlet. She loved to play, loved to laugh. She was quiet as a mouse in the library, but on the playground, barely a moment went by when she wasn't laughing or, at the very least, giggling. Other children swarmed around her, her laugh contagious, spreading through them like wildfire. She was loved by all. And that was my life up till a few days ago. Parent who planned the child they didn't want. School years filled with books, and spent fascinated by the most beautiful and wonderful woman who was destined for another. Adulthood again filled with books and spent fascinated by the most beautiful, wonderful woman who shared her dream life with the father of the most loving, joy-filled daughter I would always want but could never have. After graduation, my parents forgot about me. They made no effort to contact me, and the few times I tried to see them, I was quickly brushed aside and ignored. So I went to work, basked in the sunlight of Molly's presence, warmed myself with the stories of her peaceful life, soothed my mind, collecting moments here and there with Scarlet, filled my heart with the joy of Scarlet's laughter, and walked to the grocery store every Monday and Thursday, and dived into any and all books I could get my hands on to fill the time in between. Most wouldn't have seen it as much of a life, but I was content.